nature, things of that 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 nature.
And welcome in, everybody, to the Pot of That Nature pregame show. Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis with Inside Arkansas here with you today to get you primed up for the Razorbacks and the Bulldogs. Arkansas heads to Mississippi State this weekend as very rare SEC road favorites in Starkville. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. What do you think, Andrew?
I'm buzzing for this matchup, Curtis. As it gets closer, you know, we always do this where we're like, as it gets closer, the excitement builds a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It's not building that much. But I do think Arkansas fans are projected to have a good Saturday, at least according to the experts. And I think they should embrace this moment. You can never take these precious SEC wins for granted. And Arkansas's got a prime opportunity to pick one up. And Curtis, they better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's, Mississippi State is bad. They're a bad football team, but they are improving. They're showing signs. They're getting a little better every week. And to me, the pressure is kind of on Arkansas to not be the one that gets got, because I do think Mississippi State is going to pick somebody off before the season is over. And, like you said, they better. And you're right, because you just do not want to be that team ever, but especially given your own circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've talked about this a little bit throughout the week on Inside Arkansas Live, but I feel like Mississippi State is getting a lot of credit for respectable losses, which, by the way, is perfectly fine. I mean, we've been some of the people giving them credit. There's absolutely no shame in losing by 10 on the road at Georgia in a game that you kind of stormed back and forced them to really play in. And you were going into the fourth quarter, a one-possession game against Texas A&M. You lose that game by 10 as well. Again, there's no shame in that. And I feel like it says a lot about, Mississippi State and kind of their belief in their new head coach in year one under Jeff Lebby. And it, says a lot about their chances moving forward as a program. But I do think it's one thing to kind of play a team pretty close when they don't expect you to play that well against them, especially in the Georgia game when they were up by, I think they got up 34-0 at one point. It's a little bit different than being at home where you actually have a chance to win the game and you got to go out there and do it. And frankly, if you're Mississippi State and you're looking at your schedule, this Arkansas game is one you've probably had circled as like, hey, we can maybe steal one here. And so we'll see if they're able to kind of rise to that occasion. But yeah, you said it, the pressure's on Arkansas. And I think Arkansas knows that. But at the end of the day, wouldn't you rather have the pressure on you to actually win, especially because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to have left to win an SEC game this year? I feel like Arkansas should be the hungrier, more motivated team in this matchup, and we'll see if they're able to get off on the right foot at 11:45 in Starkville.
Yeah, I would prefer that. I appreciate your positivity about this game this morning. Arkansas historically just does not handle expectations well. So I do hope that they do that. And I think they will, to your point, because I do think that Arkansas is probably – it's a week-to-week thing where, after a Tennessee game, they're probably not quite as good as people are making them out to be. After that LSU game, they're probably not as bad as people think they are. And there is some variance with this team, but I do think that even their worst is better than a lot of what Mississippi State's put out there this season. The Bulldogs have shown improvement offensively. It seems like week to week. They got the freshman quarterback in there now. Defense, man, it just it doesn't really have a pulse unless they're coming up with a turnover. But that's why we're here to talk about this stuff pregame, and we really go through three different categories. We talk about just musts for the Razorbacks in every game, whether that's just things without the course of the game that have to happen for them to find success, whether it's certain position battles that they have to win. We throw out some pregame challenges, some players. We do some bold predictions. So let's jump into it. Andrew, real quick, I think this will be fairly fast with with the position battles. Which ones must Arkansas win? All of them. They're just better at all areas of the field, and you just got to go out there and play like it. But seriously, to me, and we could pick anything, and I'd be anxious to hear what you have to say. But it's both sides of the trenches for me in a game like this on the road early, where Arkansas needs to establish dominance. I mean, the offensive line. Maybe Patrick Kudus will be in there. Maybe he won't. Maybe the Marion Harris move out to tackle and whoever's inside. Maybe that takes hold after another week. But this is a game where, Arkansas has had its struggles at times throughout the course of the year in pass pro. They haven't really been paving the way in the run game like they were early in the season in SEC play. This is an opportunity for them to do it against honestly, a Mississippi State defense that, well, they're last in the conference in everything, pretty much every metric you can find out there. And then the flip side, Arkansas's defensive line against you can't get beat by the Fighting Cody Kennedys here. That's all. You just can't do that. And you can't let Michael Van Buren sit back there comfortable as a true freshman in the pocket. So both sides of the trenches for me, just handle your business, establish yourself in there. And I think that's going to go a long way towards getting a dub.
Yeah, I think, coming away from the LSU game, I think it was a little bit of a come to Jesus moment where a lot of folks just kind of came to the realization, hey, Arkansas on the offensive line and the defensive line is not up there with some of those top 10 teams in the country. And, to your point, they played kind of out of their minds against Tennessee, and credit to Travis Williams and his staff for kind of finding a way around it. But you look at Arkansas and what they have on the line of scrimmage, and it doesn't really stack up. But this is a matchup where, Arkansas should be able to win that one. They should be able to run the ball. Arkansas has to be able to get stuff going on the ground. When this Arkansas offense was at its best, it's when they were handing the ball to Jaquan Jackson a lot, which they may not have the opportunity to do. It doesn't seem like it's trending toward that direction. But regardless of who's carrying the ball, Arkansas up front has to win that battle. And on the flip side, Mississippi State's defensive line, it's not like they're creating a ton of havoc. I think it's under 1 sack per game. And so it's not like you're facing the Swensons of the world or the Pierces of the world at Tennessee or the Scourton of the world at Texas A&M. Like, Arkansas's faced some really dominant edge rushers in the last 3 games. They're not going to be facing that necessarily in this one. I think that could allow this Arkansas offense to open up a little bit more, which if you've been watching this team play football for the last month, you know that this Arkansas offense is desperately in need of some opening up a little bit. And so I think it starts on the ground, and I think Arkansas has to run the ball well in this game. We've been saying that for weeks, and they've been failing to do it for weeks. But I really think if you're not able to get something going to the tune of maybe 160, 170 yards on the ground, and maybe more, I think is really possible. But if you're not able to do that in this matchup, I think you really have to reevaluate what you're trying to do offensively, and we'll see what they're able to do around Taylor Green. But I also think you mentioned Michael Van Buren, the freshman quarterback for Mississippi State, who's kind of taken over for Shapen, the guy they brought in from Baylor. And honestly, it's a good move for them, if you ask me. I think this is productive for their future. I think he also brings a little bit of dynamism to that offense. I will say, when I was looking at the numbers, I was a little bit surprised. He's thrown a ton of passes in some of these games. Like, I believe against Georgia, he threw 41 passes. I think it was about 38, 39 against Texas A&M. So they've been airing it out a lot. He's completing right above 50% of his passes, like 53%. In the last few weeks, it's been high volume and still around 50%. So it's weird coming off of a matchup where we watched Arkansas give up a lot of 8-yard completions to Garrett Nussmeier in the LSU offense. But I really do think Arkansas's got to keep everything in front of them. They can't get beat with the big plays against this Mississippi State offense because they've had some explosion. And that's what I think could keep the Bulldogs in this game. And I say keep them in the game. It's not like Arkansas is going to blow them out. I wouldn't necessarily predict. Sure. But I do think that if there's a path for this Mississippi State offense to kind of keep up with Arkansas, it's going to be with some big plays. And so I do think they're going to have to keep this freshman quarterback contained a little bit, force him to make a few mistakes. He's only thrown 2 interceptions this year. You'd like to think he's due for a little bit. And so I think Arkansas has to kind of be on their P's and Q's, and hopefully Arkansas on the flip side is able to create some explosion offensively.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, I was trying to look it up here because I'd heard someone say that Van Buren leads the SEC in yards per attempt, but he's not on the qualifying list because he hasn't played enough games. So I can't find it right off the top. I think it's like 12.5 yards per attempt or something like that, which is
maybe is that in conference play or something like that?
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe if I put it on in conference games.
The SEC's bad about this, about having stats sortable to where it's like conference games only or whatever. Right. But yeah, he's weirdly.
No, it's lower. Yeah, it's 6.9 per attempt. Maybe it's per reception or something that they've got going on there. But to your point, yeah, they do take some shots, and it is interesting to me that we're talking about a guy here who does throw a ton. He's not overly accurate, as you pointed out there. But he's not really making a ton of mistakes. I mean, six touchdown passes and only 2 interceptions, and he's thrown for multiple touchdown passes against A&M, Georgia. So, they've got some things there. You mentioned the sack numbers, less than 1 per game. It's kind of crazy. Mississippi State has 5 sacks the entire season, and the next lowest in the SEC is 14. So they're like a third of the way there with everybody else. So not really generating much of anything at all. And then I'm guessing, as I pull this up here, that they probably are not sacking the quarterback much either. or they're probably not protecting the quarterback much either. They're not the worst. They've given up 22 sacks this season in 7 games, which is a lot. I mean, it's 3 a game. But my goodness, dude, Oklahoma has allowed 29 sacks. South Carolina has allowed 32 sacks. Holy cow. So Mississippi State's not worse. It's something good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
And I do think, like, if there's a matchup I'm worried about with Arkansas, it's much more coming from this Mississippi State offense. I mean, Jeff Lebby, that's his calling card. I mean, we know he's from the Kendall Briles family, technically, because I think they are like brothers-in-law or something like that. But seriously, Jeff Lebby, I mean, you see at Oklahoma, they're struggling to replace his impact as their offensive coordinator, one of the best play callers in the country. And I have no doubt, for as long as he's the head coach at Mississippi State, they're going to have pretty good quarterback play, and they're going to be able to generate some explosion offensively. And so this offense is definitely not one to overlook. But I will be honest, this defense for Mississippi State is one to overlook. I mean, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. Just about every stat you want to use, whatever you want to set the parameters at, they're in the bottom 3 or 4 of the SEC. Whether you're talking about pass defense, rush defense, third down, yards per play, red zone, like, it does not matter. This Mississippi State defense it's a work in progress, which you would expect in year one under a head coach. And Arkansas is no stranger to a situation like that. They've been in that position before. So I think Arkansas really needs to take advantage of this opportunity where they get to be the hammer, especially on the offensive end. And what's the best way to keep an explosive offense from hurting you? Keep the ball away from them. And we haven't really seen Arkansas the last few weeks be able to sustain drives for long. And against Tennessee, they were able to do it down that opening possession. But Arkansas not being able to run the ball has really kind of hindered them in some of these matchups, and they get behind the 8 ball. I think Arkansas should be in a much better position to kind of control the tempo of this game and control the momentum a little bit, which on the road in Starkville, you kind of have to do, especially because, again, this Mississippi State team, they're getting a lot of credit. There's a little bit of like I'm not saying this team's coming in here super confident, but they haven't taken this Mississippi State team's pride away from them yet.
Yeah.
And Arkansas might have to be the team to do it. You lose to Arkansas, that's where you're kind of like, all right, this might not be our year.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's why I think one of the musts for me, and I mean it this time, you talk about it all the time and you always want to have this, but I legit think Arkansas has got to get off to a fast start, a good start here. The worst thing they could do is kind of sleepwalk into this game, have a drive stall out or turn it over and then give up a touchdown and get behind early against a team who's starving for a reason to feel confidence and to believe at home. You don't want to give them that, because then you might be setting yourself up for a dogfight. And, let's just not do that. Let's just have a ho-hum performance maybe. And then I do agree with the whole premise of kind of controlling the clock, controlling the ball, keeping that offense off the field. For me, though, and I know you agree with this, as long as it ends in points, man, I do not care how, but just score, for the love of God. Put points on the board. 17.5 points per game in SEC play is not going to cut it. And we've talked about a lot of different aspects here in 13 minutes of, well, if you're not doing against Mississippi State, then boy, we got some bigger questions. Well, if you're not scoring points on Mississippi State, we got some tough questions to ask about the direction of this offense, I think, and they should be able to rectify some of those things with a, feel goodish performance offensively. But buddy, we need to see it.
I agree for sure. And we've done a good job of not talking about like the big picture standing of the Arkansas program. But I think that when you talk about getting off to a fast start and having that sense of urgency, I think that has to be at an all-time high for Arkansas. They need to almost be playing desperately in this one because Arkansas really cannot afford to lose this game. Like, I know that sounds like kind of unfair, and it's, someone's probably going to accuse us of putting too much pressure on them or whatever, but it's the reality of the situation. The Hogs simply cannot afford to go lay an egg in Starkville, and you would like to see that reflected in the way that they start this game, the way they come out. And you're absolutely right, Curtis. I mean, we've talked about this Arkansas offense a lot. Early in the year, we thought, wow, 650 yards per game. Like, hey, this offense might be better than anyone thought. Wow, how about that? Then they kind of come back to earth a little bit. And like we said earlier, I don't think they're as good as they looked early. I don't think they're as bad as they've looked late. I think they're probably somewhere in the middle. But if you go out there again and because what's the highest Arkansas scored? 24 points in SEC play.
Yeah.
If they fail to get above that in this game, are you going to do it against Ole Miss, who's got a loaded defensive front? Are you going to do it against Texas, maybe the most talented team in the country? Are you going to do it on the road in Como against Missouri to finish your season? Probably not. And so I think, there's, I know it almost sounds like the lazy take to be like, well, if you can't beat Mississippi State, you can't beat anyone. But if you can't offensively, if you're not able to get things going here, I start to really lose faith in this offense's ability to do anything against SEC opponents.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Okay, so any other position battles, any other musts that were on your mind before we move on? I know we've kind of been all over the place there, but it's
Not
pretty
really,
straightforward.
because I actually came somewhat prepped for this one. I'm going to touch on some of my other kind of things that need to happen in my my challenges and my bold prediction.
There we go. That's kind of where I was at. So we'll get into that here in just a second. But folks, first before we do, we got to tell you about our friends over at Roback. Listen, it's the seasons are changing, right? It's cooling off, or at least we think it is. It's warm right now, but rumor has it is going to cool off in Arkansas at some point here. And when it does, you might need to get your wardrobe restocked. And if you do, I think you got to check out Roback. They got a lot going on. Andrew, I don't know if you've been over there and checked out that website yet, but man, they got some good stuff over there. I was looking at those performance hoodies, those quarter zips. You mentioned the quarter zips yesterday, but those things are nice. The moisture wicking, they're comfortable. And they got all the cool things, how they describe it too. A 4-way stretch and premier sport fit, versatile for any occasion. But it's true, though. I absolutely love those things. I'm a big hoodie guy, but they got a little bit of everything, man. You need to go get a polo. You can get it there. You can shop for the ladies, too. They got the Roback Active Skorts for those active ladies out there. Just a little bit of everything, man. I really, really like what they got going on. And if you like what they got going on, you got to go check them out. www.roback.com. We got a promo code, HOGSBY20. I know everybody hears John with the Hogs by 90. No, don't do that. Hogs by 20. Throw that promo code out there. You get 20% off your first purchase. That's a really good deal on some really good stuff. So make sure you go check them out. No doubt about it. Andrew,
Gotta get the fall fits in order.
Oh, you got to get the fall fits in order. You absolutely have to. I've been thinking about that as we get to we're kind of in that point right now where it's too warm for sleeves during the day. But as that sun starts going down, you're like, it might not be full on hoodie weather, but I could use that quarter zip. And I go to the closet and it's like, man, it's the same thing I've had for 3 or 4 years. I gotta amp it up. So
you can't show up to the Thanksgiving function with the same fit you had last year, the same jacket you wore, the same hoodie, the same sweater. Yeah. Get you some of that performance gear. And also they got the hog collection, the Arkansas collection. That Arkansas stuff looked awesome. Which I mean, for Arkansas stuff, non-Arkansas stuff, man, it's good stuff. I'm really excited about our partnership with Roback.
Yeah, no doubt. And you can probably find some good stuff for those February just brutally cold baseball games. We can go out there and rep the Hogs and stay warm. So yeah, it's there's some good stuff over there. Check it out, folks. Use the promo code and they'll take care of you on that first purchase, 20% off. Let's get to our challenges, Andrew. I have a feeling that we're going to be pretty much in lockstep with some of these. I want to let you go first, and well, you just go, and I'll tell you if this was the first one that I had.
Well, I mean, we're just going to go with the low hanging fruit. This is the obvious one. I am challenging Mr. Braylon Russell, freshman running back out of Benton, Arkansas, the hometown boy, who Sam Pittman called him into his office on Monday, wanted to let him know, hey, man, we're giving you an opportunity. Here's the keys to the Ferrari. Don't wreck it, which if you were the head coach at Georgia, that would be a little bit of an issue. But luckily, we're not at Georgia. But Braylon Russell, in all seriousness, with Jaquin Jackson, did they list him as doubtful yesterday?
They did.
So yeah, it's maybe he has a heroic recovery here and he's back. But even if he plays, he's not going to have a heavy workload. You would imagine. He only had 5 carries last week. Was in and out of the game, regardless of whether or not Jaquin Jackson plays, and it doesn't seem like he's going to. Braylon Russell. It's time for Arkansas to kind of unleash him. And Sam Pittman, I mean, he spent like 5 minutes in his press conference the other day speaking about how, hey, it doesn't matter that he's young. It's time to get him out there. Let's just see what he can do. And I also agree with Sam Pittman's point that I think Braylon Russell's the kind of guy. I mean, he's 255 pounds. It doesn't get easier to tackle that guy throughout the game.
Good.
And obviously he may get tired himself, but it's like you hit him 3 or 4 times in the middle. It's like, God, I really hope they don't run it at me again. I would imagine it has that type of effect. And we spoke about Dominique Johnson, again, another 250-pound running back who got his chance against Mississippi State, had 107 yards in his first career start, had the game-winning touchdown. I'm not saying Braylon Russell has to do all that, but I do think that it's time for Arkansas fans to really get a full glimpse at a guy who may be the feature back moving forward, in his career. He might hold that role. This will be a nice little audition for him to kind of show that he's ready for a bigger workload. And as a freshman, you're at that point now where it's that time in the year where you start losing that freshman status a little bit. He's played in some games. He's clearly not redshirt, and it's like you might as well go ahead and unleash him now. And, he should be fresh, should be healthy. Only had 3 carries last week. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do with his opportunity. And like we mentioned, it's not like he's facing Fort Knox on the other end with Mississippi State. I think he's going to have some lanes here and there to run through. I can't wait to see what he's able to do with it. So, Braylon Russell, I am challenging you to leave no doubt.
I like it. I like that for sure. I'll throw a little side challenge to piggyback off of that, because I also had this written down is to Bobby Petrino and Sam Pittman, just to make that a thing, right? It's up to them. They say they're going to hand him the football and juice him up or whatever, and let's hand him the keys and let him go. We'll do that. Just give him the ball. You ran it 18 times, 19 times, whatever it was last week. That's not enough, especially in this game. Force the issue. This is a game where you can do that in terms of establishing it, and take it out of Taylon Green's hands. Maybe don't give him the option in the play call. Just, hey, turn around, hand the ball off, big fella, and give it to your guys. So I do want to see just a more concerted effort in that regard. In all honesty, I am going to challenge. I got a couple here. I'm going to challenge Taylon Green to make a pit stop at Auburn to grab his legs, because they've been MIA since that game. They got to get him more involved in this. And I get it. He's been a little bit banged up, whatever. But here's the thing. And he's been passing it better. I'm not taking that away from him. He has made improvements with that part of his game. But Taylon Green is a dual threat quarterback. What makes him special is the dynamic that he brings to the game with his legs. And I'm not saying he has to go out there and go crazy, but he was sacked 3 times and he only had 3 rushing attempts against LSU last week. He should be able to have one of those huge games against Mississippi State, and it should involve his legs. If he is a threat to get the edge and extend plays and make plays with his legs, it opens up things for everybody else. It really does. A lot of his touchdown passes has come off of that, just kind of escaping, getting outside the pocket and finding somebody streaking down the field. That opens things up for Braylon Russell or Rashad Dubinion or whoever the hell they're going to hand the football off to. He just needs to be more of a factor there. I'm not saying be reckless, but my goodness, I never would have thought at any point coming into the season, but especially after the first few games, that we would have gone 3 games now in SEC play and Taylon Green has negative rushing yards. It's crazy to me. Go down to Auburn, Jordan Hare, get your damn legs, and let's see it in Starkville.
Yeah, what do you have, 80 yards in that Auburn game, and he's had negative since then? I mean, that was a long time ago. Well, and Curtis, since you piggybacked off my Braylon Russell one, I think I'm going to piggyback off of your Taylon Green one. And I'm issuing a challenge to Mr. Bobby Petrino, who's getting challenged a lot today, in particular in the run game, because I think, when you look at Taylon Green and you say, oh, he had 80 yards rushing against Auburn, and he had negative against Tennessee, negative against LSU. It's not like he's no longer athletic or he just forgot how to run. I think Arkansas offensively needs to feature that a little bit more. I think they need to find creative ways to get him out on the edge, get him out in space, one-on-one, make a guy miss, whatever the case may be. So I'm kind of putting that onus a little bit on the coaching staff. Obviously, Taylon's the big horse. He's got to run himself. He's the racehorse. He's got to win the Kentucky Derby. But the jockey's got to be slapping his butt. You know what I mean? And so I do think it's going to be important for them to look for ways. And again, against this Mississippi State defense, who really shows a lot of, non-resistance to a lot of things, I think Arkansas should be able to keep them off balance a little bit. I think they're going to be able to run the ball with whoever they attempt to. And we'll get to it a little bit later, but I think Arkansas creating some explosive plays should kind of get the lid off and get them able to do whatever they want to do offensively. And you just got to keep the ball. And I think Arkansas, if they're cranking out those 9, 10, 11 play drives that last 4 and 5 minutes, I think Taylon's going to be in the mix of it, in the thick of it. Also, I will just touch on his injury status real quick. I thought he looked healthy last week. Like, I know everybody after Arkansas got smoked was like, oh, well, Taylon must not have been 100%. I actually didn't get that vibe from him. In his rushing attempts, he looked fine. He actually, LSU's defense makes a lot of people look pedestrian with the way that their linebackers were covering ground, Whit Weeks in particular. And so maybe that's where one of those plays they were like, oh, he would have outran that white dude. But I don't know, that white dude's pretty good.
Yeah, Thad Castle ain't having it, man.
Right. And so I really don't, I didn't get the vibe that he was like tentative or like scared to run or anything, which maybe mentally there was some of that, but at least physically, he looked like he held up fine. He took a few hits, and Arkansas's got a bye week in 2 weeks. I'm not saying unleash him and go crazy, 30 attempts in the ground and run them up the middle, but I feel like you can get 8 or 9 legitimate rushing attempts out of your quarterback, which should help set the tone well for this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess maybe this one is not at a specific player, or maybe it will be. I need a defensive back to get a takeaway, man. Like, I need these guys to get a takeaway. And so do they need to go to Auburn with Taylor Green to find their takeaway bug, because they don't have one since then, right? Is that the last time Arkansas has generated a turnover?
Now, to be fair, they did get like 13 against Auburn, but no, they have not had one since.
Yeah, they got their season's worth. They filled their basket down at Auburn for sure, man. But you got to have that. It's time. And, it really stood out to me in one way against Tennessee. It was almost impressive because they were able to do what they did without generating a takeaway. And you're like, oh, wow, that's really good. But then that LSU game, it really stood out from the standpoint of, they're bending, they're not breaking, they're hanging in there. But damn, man, if they could just make a play here, it could really help this struggling offense. And while those guys are stuck in neutral, the defense, they're just going to kind of have to be ball hawks. They're going to have to be playmakers and force the issue a little bit. Somebody do that. If I got an issue to one specifically, man, I don't know. I've done Metcalf too many times. Oh, Captain Cuddy, right?
There you go.
Yeah, Marquise Robinson, captain. Shout out to him. So that'll be my guy. I'm challenging you to come up with a big play there on the back end for the defense. He's going to throw it to you, or at least throw it around you. I mean, he might chuck it 45 times in this game. So go out there and make a play. They had some opportunities against Nussmeier that they weren't able to take advantage of. So those are big on the road, especially when, and I get it, Arkansas needs to win the turnover battle. It's been a big deal for them all season. I just feel like Arkansas is good for at least one boneheaded turnover. So you got to at least get yours back. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have this freshman quarterback only having 2 interceptions. And I know he hadn't played every single game this year, but you gotta rough him up a little bit. You got to give him a welcome to the SEC moment, because the SEC has been a little too kind to Michael Van Buren, and his defense has given these opposing teams a lot of a cushion. And we'd like to think Arkansas is going to be up a lot in this game, is going to kind of maybe have some garbage time, but I feel like Arkansas is going to be a little bit closer of a game. You find out what a guy's really made of when it's a closer game. And I look forward to seeing what Arkansas is able to do to fluster him for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't know how we would really determine this or not. No, I'll put it this way, Andrew, a team-wide challenge. Just embrace expectations and go take care of your business. Just no funny business in this one. And that's not me saying, okay, Arkansas's got to go out there and beat these guys by 28 points or whatever. But you're the better team. Nobody's arguing that. You're expected to win by a touchdown or whatever on the road. Just go out there and handle your business, man. Just do what people are expecting you to do. That's kind of what these other teams who have played Mississippi State have done, where they've gotten a lead. And this hasn't been a deal where Mississippi State has been in shootouts and then a late score makes it a 10-point game or something. Usually, like A&M, Georgia, they were pretty much in control, had a 2-score lead most of the time, never let it really, really get in super jeopardy. That's what I want to see from Arkansas. Just kind of control the game like you were talking about. Keep that offense off of the field. Finish your drives. No funny business. And just win this one comfortably. If Arkansas if they win by 7 to 10 points, I'm fine with that, as long as you're up by that much the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can look at Texas A&M and Georgia, who, those are maybe the 2 best teams in the SEC, literally. So if you don't want to compare Arkansas to that, Florida went to Starkville and beat these cats 45-28. And Florida at the time was ready to run their coach out of town.
Yes.
And so it's look, if they can go out there, Billy Napier can rejuvenate his career in Starkville. I feel like Arkansas can go in there and get the job done as well.
Yeah, Graham Mertz was out there doing the Kyle Trask thing in that game. He only threw 1 incompletion the entire game. It was nuts.
Curtis, I want to issue one more individual challenge to a linebacker, to Xavier Sorey, the Georgia transfer, who's had a pretty solid season. I mean, I'd say he's been Arkansas's best linebacker. I felt like Arkansas's linebackers were just kind of failing to show up in that LSU game. The only time you ever really noticed any of Arkansas's linebackers, it was 7, 8, 9 yards downfield or getting run over at the end zone or whatever the case may be. I didn't feel like Arkansas's linebackers played to their standard, which is a word they like to use. They didn't play to their standard against LSU. And I want to take you on a trip down memory lane, Curtis. 2020, when the Sam Pittman era was born. in Starkville with a 21-14 win. Mr. Bumper Pool logged 20 tackles in that game. 20. I guess that was like one of the first games you covered as a Razorback reporter.
That's right. Like the second
yeah,
one.
he had 20 tackles and one SEC Player of the Week. I'm pretty sure he missed the following week with a rib injury. He may or may not have broken a rib and still logged 20 tackles. And Arkansas put together a crazy defensive performance. Now, this Mississippi State offense probably is a little bit better in 2024, weirdly enough, even though in that 2020 game, we thought that Arkansas shut down a Heisman winner and KJ Costello. I think this Mississippi State team's actually, or this Mississippi State offense, I should say, is a little bit more legitimate. Although RIP Mike Leach, by the way.
Yes.
But I do think Arkansas is going to have better play from their linebackers. And look, I'm not expecting them to get 20 tackles. I also think tackles is a stupid metric to use to judge individual defensive success. But I would love to see Arkansas's linebackers get back to flashing, get back to covering east to west, tracking guys down, making plays in the backfield. Don't just make the tackles 9 yards downfield. And Xavier Sorey, who I think is a good player. And again, I think he's been Arkansas's best linebacker, but I feel like he hasn't had like that game, that like signature game where he's, maybe SEC Defensive Player of the Week, something like that, racks up 13 tackles, 2 or 3 for loss, maybe gets a sack, because I know Arkansas linebackers have been responsible for like half the sacks this year. I would like to see Sorey in particular. I'd like to see him really flash in this game.
Yeah, I like that one. I like it a lot. If I remember correctly, looking at those PFF grades, it might have been Sorey in particular's worst tackling grade of the season. I think he missed 3. Is that right? Yeah, and that's uncharacteristic for him. He's really been pretty sure and steady for him, unless he's suplexing a guy or whatever and getting a flag. But
yeah, Arkansas went from their entire team missing 3 tackles against Tennessee to him having 3 tackles and Arkansas having 8 or 9 as a team against LSU. So yeah.
Exactly. There you go. Let's get into some bold predictions, Andrew, and get out of here, man. The first one I'm going to throw out there, and honestly, I don't know. Like, it really shouldn't be that bold, but I mean, I guess it kind of is given the circumstances. Like, you got to consider Mississippi State has a very bad defense. Scoring defense-wise, they're giving up 33 points per game overall on the season, and they're giving up 38.8 in SEC play. But we've talked about Arkansas's inability to finish drives with points. They're averaging 17.5 points per game against SEC opponents. My bold prediction is that Arkansas is going to double that and put 35 or more on the board against Mississippi State. I think they're going to have a feel-good game offensively.
I like that, Curtis. I like that. I can see Arkansas cracking 40. I can see it. Well, Curtis, I'm going to go on the defensive end. We talked about the turnovers and how Arkansas just has not forced one in like a month now. And also Mississippi State has not turned the ball over a ton. Not what you would think when you see a 1-5 team. You'd think they're just leaving it all over the floor. They're really not. I think Arkansas is going to force at least 2 turnovers defensively. It seems like when Arkansas does it, they do it in bunches. And so that'd be nice to see. I mean, they had 5, and the last time they had a turnover, I'm not expecting them to have 5, but I do think they're going to be able to pick off Van Buren at least once. Man, Arkansas hasn't even come close to recovering a fumble in a minute. I haven't even seen a ball on the ground. We kind of view like it's like a law of averages. They're maybe due. I don't know. Maybe this Arkansas defense just doesn't force fumbles. I don't know if they hit hard enough for that, but I do think Arkansas is going to have a chance to pick off at least 1 pass, maybe grab a fumble. Maybe it's 2 picks, but I think Arkansas forces at least 2 turnovers in this matchup, which, given this Mississippi State defense, if you get 2 turnovers, that should give you like a 92% win probability.
Yeah, I would think so. I had one written down. I wasn't going to throw it out there, but since you said that, I will. But I had Taylon Green turning it over twice, but Arkansas coming up with at least 3. So
there you go. I like that.
I didn't want to be that guy today, but screw it, I will. And then I have another one, and this is not 2 challenges. This is 1 challenge. So if only one of these things happen, I don't get credit for this bold prediction. I mean, not a challenge. I've got Luke Has and Tyrone Broden touchdown receptions incoming in this game.
Wow.
That's right. And if I get it, I'm clipping this and I'm taking a victory lap, buddy.
As you should. I mean, look, I'll have to check it on SARACEN. I'm sure they'll be able to let you do that.
This Taylon Green, who has 6 touchdown passes all season, Has and Broden, who have 1 apiece, but it hasn't been it hasn't happened.
They were both in the first 2 weeks of the season, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
Yeah, I bet that same game parlay on SARACEN is probably looking at about 18-1. maybe 20-1.
Oh, it's probably, yeah.
Maybe even more than that. It might be a doozy right there. So be on the lookout for that. Go check that out. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is going to be a game where I think Arkansas is going to be able to get some chunk plays, some big plays. That secondary, well, every layer of Mississippi State's defense it's a tough scene, but this strikes me as the type of game where maybe Arkansas and Taylor Green can start getting some confidence, in the red zone, and particularly pass line. They just really don't throw touchdown passes in the red zone, so maybe this is an opportunity for them to do it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the red zone, Curtis, and we like to play the hits on this show sometimes. We challenged Tyrone Broden. We've challenged Luke Has a lot. I guess you didn't challenge him. That's a bold prediction. We've challenged Bobby Petrino a lot. There's a lot of challenges that we've run back. I'm going to run back one that I did last week and just hope nobody notices. Because last time I did this, Arkansas didn't reach the red zone. But I do think this Arkansas offense is due for some correction in the red zone. They are still the worst red zone offense in the SEC. They were last week. They didn't even get to the red zone last week, so they will remain the worst. But I think Arkansas, for all those reasons you detailed, Curtis, should be in a much more favorable matchup in the red area this time around. And I'm not saying they're going to have a touchdown every time. I think they're going to get points on every drive. And I think last week I said they would have 3 touchdowns and 1 field goal. I think they're going to have more touchdowns, but I do think I think Arkansas is coming away with points every time they get to the red zone. And it's not going to be one of those weird games where they kick 4 field goals inside of 35 yards or something stupid like that. Matthew Shipley's services will not be needed a ton in this game other than to boot the extra point. At least that's, if this offense has a pulse, I think they will find a way to get into the end zone. And I'm hoping Andrew Armstrong, if your Broden has touchdown prop doesn't hit, I'm hoping Armstrong can stat pad a little bit here and get up to like 3 touchdowns on the year. If he gets 2, that'll give him 3 for the year. Because where he's at yardage wise, Curtis, I've been tracking this a lot. He's gonna have a real chance to be definitely second team All SEC. But I think if he catches some touchdowns, he could wind up being on the first team All SEC alongside Trey Harris, who's certainly going to be first team All SEC. He has like 1,100 yards already. But Andrew Armstrong has a good chance to finish in the top 2 for yardage in the league. And so if he's able to get up to that like 5 or 6 touchdown range for the year, I think that would equate to first team All SEC status, which is extremely notable in a conference that produces more NFL draft receivers than any in the country. And so I'm looking forward to Arkansas in the red zone. And I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I just really do. And so any bettors out there, I would recommend just like whoever you have a gut feeling scoring a touchdown, just throw them in there. I think we're looking at, like you said, Arkansas scoring 35, 40 points in this game.
Yeah, I like that. And I hope it happens. I think that's all I got. I didn't have any other bold predictions, nothing like that.
I got one more.
You got one more? Okay, good.
Not going on the theme of the red zone, but going on the theme of this being a high-scoring game. So Arkansas went to a stretch where they had like a lot of long touchdowns. In week 1, they had a ton of long touchdowns. I think Jaquinta Jackson had like a 50-yard run. Luke Has caught a 43-yard touchdown against Oklahoma State. They've had a lot of big plays. Isaiah Satania catches a 58-yarder against Auburn. Tesla caught a 75-yard touchdown against A&M. Doesn't that seem like that was years ago? Arkansas has not had a ton of explosion offensively here lately. I think we're seeing at least one 50-plus yard touchdown from a Razorback. Won't specify who. I only share what the gods relay to me. 50-plus yard touchdown from any Razorback. My favorite, it would be funny if it were Braylon Russell. Just see him 255 pounds streaking down the sideline. That would be awesome. But I think Isaiah Satania is a candidate to catch like a 72-yarder in this one. Just get behind the defense, which would be awesome. Hey, I'll tell you, your boy Tyrone Broden, this might be his spot. Because Tyrone Broden's got all that speed. We know he can run. We know he can jump. The first play of the year, they tried to get him a 75-yard touchdown. I would really like to see them just see how far he can run and see how fast. They can maybe get him drafted off of one play. If they just let him run a go route and just burn a dude by 3 yards, I would love to see that. But I'm thinking at least one hog gets a 50-yard touchdown.
There we go. All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. And for those who might be new to the program, this is not one of those deals where we just come on here and spout a bunch of nonsense before the game and then forget about it. Make sure you tune in afterwards. We do our accountability session where we just kind of go back through everything that we talked about, the position battles, who we challenged, the bold predictions. we hold ourselves accountable for what we said. If it's right, we pat ourselves on the back. If it's wrong, we own it, we wear it. And so that's just kind of what you have to look forward to. But make sure you get tapped into all the ways to just follow along with what we're doing at Inside Arkansas. Follow the YouTube page. Check out our written content, InsideArkansas.com. If you listen to this in podcast form, Pot of That Nature has its own feed, Spotify, Apple, wherever you go. Do that. Make sure you throw us a like, throw us a 5-star review. All those things really help us a ton just to grow our audience, which is what we're trying to do. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, for Andrew Ellis, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pot of That Nature. We will see you guys Saturday. Everybody have a good one.